to die. Outside the mine, dusk fell. The wind ceased. In the end, all that was left of number 4 was the sound of children's voices, crying, though there was no one left to hear them. Down the hill from the mine, in a large house that stood alone on the edge of the valley, a woman lay on her bed, pain racking her body. She was dimly aware that something had happened, that there had been an accident at the mine, and even in the agony of her labor, she knew her husband had died. As her baby moved inside her, struggling to release itself into the world, the woman began to know the taste of hatred. Her husband was dead, and her life was over. She hadn't wanted a child, but her wishes hadn't mattered to her husband. He had insisted. And now, as she delivered the tiny gift that her husband would have loved, he had abandoned her, leaving her only the baby and the mine that had killed him. Late that night, as the people of the town gathered in front of the mine to mourn their dead, the woman mourned the birth of her child. And all through the night, while the wind blew down from the mountains, the sounds of children crying filled the depths of the mine. For half a century, there was no one to hear them. Esperanza Rodriguez, her dark eyes set deep in her lined face, watched silently as the body of Elliot Lyons was brought up from the depths of the mine. All her life she had been expecting something like this to happen. Over and over, her mother had told her the story of what had happened when she was only a few days old, and the gringos, in their stupidity, had disturbed the cave of the lost children. They had died that day, many of them, and the mine had been closed. For 50 years it had remained undisturbed, its depths flooded with water, until a month ago, when Senor Lyons had come from Chicago and begun poking around. And now he too was dead. Dead like Amos Amber, who had owned the mine and died in the flood. Dead like her own father, who had also been in the mine that day. Esperanza had no memory of the flood, but in the half-century since, as she had grown up near the mine, her mother had been careful to warn her of what would happen if the mine were ever reopened. It was part of the sacred cave now, the cave of the lost children. Though the gringos claimed the cave was only a legend, what the gringos thought didn't matter to Esperanza, for she knew the cave was real, as did all her friends. It was real, and it had to be left alone. Elliot Lyons had not left it alone, and now he was dead. Christie Lyons stared straight ahead, her eyes unseeing, her tiny white hand lost in Esperanza's large brown one. Tears flowed down her cheeks, and her chin quivered as she struggled not to cry out loud. She hadn't believed it at first. Her father was all she had, and she was sure that what was happening was all a bad dream, that any minute now her father would wake her up and tell her it was only a nightmare. She stared up into the face of Esperanza Rodriguez, who had held her in her lap while they had told her father was dead. Now Esperanza was smiling at her, the way her mother used to smile at her when she was very little. Christie didn't remember her mother very well, but right now, with her father dead, she desperately wished that her mother would come back to her. For some reason, she remembered how her mother used to wash her hair, making her blonde curls light and fluffy. Now they clung damply to her forehead, and she wished her mother were there to wash them for her. But that, too, would never happen again, for her mother had died 5 years ago. She felt the man who was driving the car squeeze her leg and looked up at him. He was Dr. Henry, and even though she didn't know him very well, she knew he was a friend of her father's. She touched his hand, and he squeezed hers reassuringly before putting his hand back on the steering wheel of the car. Feeling hopeless, Christie Lyons stared out the window, not really seeing the house they were approaching. At 52, Bill Henry was still lean and ruggedly handsome. His brown hair was shot through with gray, and his skin, darkened by the Colorado sun, was the color of saddle leather. He wished he knew how to comfort the little girl beside him, but she seemed to have drifted away somewhere, and he hadn't the least idea what to say to her. Unmarried, he had never really learned the trick of talking to children, and never had he had to deal with one who had just lost her only parent.
"We're here," Bill said.